In the heart of East Sussex, England, there lies a place shrouded in darkness and mystery. Its name is Hellingly Asylum, a once grand psychiatric hospital that, over time, became synonymous with horror. The story I'm about to tell you is based on true events that transpired within those cold, sterile walls. It's a story of madness, despair, and the lingering spirits of those who could never leave. Hellingly Asylum opened its doors in 1903, designed by the famous architect George Thomas Hine. It was a state-of-the-art facility for its time, built to house the mentally ill in a peaceful and therapeutic environment. The sprawling complex was set amidst 400 acres of countryside, with wide corridors, high ceilings, and large windows that let in plenty of natural light. It was a place where doctors believed they could cure even the most troubled minds. But behind its beautiful facade, Hellingly Asylum harbored a dark secret. Over the years, the hospital became overcrowded, and the treatments grew more extreme. Electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and other experimental procedures were commonplace. Patients who once walked the grounds freely were now confined to their rooms, screaming in agony as doctors tried to fix their minds. One patient, in particular, was said to have suffered immensely. Her name was Emily, a young woman in her early 20s who had been admitted for severe depression. Emily was quiet, withdrawn, and seemed to live in a world of her own. The staff didn't pay much attention to her at first, but as the years went by, strange things began to happen around her. Emily's condition worsened with each passing day. She stopped eating, sleeping, and speaking. Her eyes grew hollow, and she spent hours staring at the walls of her room, muttering to herself in a language no one could understand. The doctors were baffled, and her treatment grew more aggressive. One day, during a routine electroshock therapy session, Emily's heart stopped. The staff worked frantically to revive her, but it was too late. Emily was pronounced dead, her body limp and lifeless on the cold metal table. But death wasn't the end for Emily. Shortly after her passing, staff members began reporting strange occurrences in the asylum. At night, the sound of a young woman crying could be heard echoing through the empty hallways. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the lights would flicker, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Some of the nurses claimed to have seen Emily's ghost wandering the halls, her pale face twisted in anguish. They described her as wearing the same white hospital gown she had died in, her long, dark hair hanging loose around her face. The asylum staff was terrified, but they were also powerless to do anything about it. In 1936, a young nurse named Margaret joined the staff at Hellingly Asylum. Margaret was kind and compassionate, always taking the time to sit with the patients and listen to their stories. She quickly became a favorite among the residents, especially the older ones who rarely received visitors. Margaret had heard the rumors about Emily's ghost, but she didn't believe in such things. She thought it was just a story made up by the other nurses to scare her. But that changed one cold winter's night when she was working the graveyard shift. As Margaret made her rounds, she heard a soft, mournful cry coming from one of the empty rooms. Curious, she followed the sound down the dark corridor, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The crying grew louder as she approached room 33, the room where Emily had died. Margaret hesitated for a moment before slowly pushing the door open. Inside, she found the room just as it had been left after Emily's death, untouched for years. The bed was neatly made, and the medical equipment had long since been removed. But the crying persisted, filling the air with a chilling sadness. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. Margaret spun around, her heart racing, but there was no one there. The room grew cold, and she could see her breath in the air. Panic set in as the crying turned into a blood-curdling scream. Margaret tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw a figure standing in the corner of the room. It was Emily, her ghostly form bathed in an eerie blue light. Emily's eyes locked onto Margaret's, and in that moment, Margaret felt an overwhelming sense of despair wash over her. It was as if all of Emily's pain and suffering had been transferred to her. Margaret's screams echoed through the asylum, but no one came to her aid. When the morning staff arrived, they found room 33 empty, the door still locked from the inside. Margaret was never seen again, and her disappearance only fueled the rumors of Emily's vengeful spirit. In 1994, after nearly a century of operation, Hellingly Asylum was finally closed. The building was left to decay, its windows boarded up and its halls silent. But the stories of Emily's ghost continued to circulate among the locals. Those who dared to venture into the abandoned asylum reported seeing strange lights flickering in the windows and hearing the faint sound of a woman crying. Some say that Eileen's spirit still roams the halls of Hellingly, searching for peace that she will never find. Others believe that the asylum itself is cursed, forever haunted by the souls of those who suffered within its walls. Today, Hellingly Asylum is nothing more than a crumbling ruin, overtaken by nature and forgotten by time. But if you ever find yourself in East Sussex on a dark, foggy night, you might just hear the faint cry of a young woman echoing through the trees, a reminder of the horrors that once took place there. After Hellingly Asylum closed, the stories of Emily's ghost didn't die down. In fact, they grew stronger as urban explorers and ghost hunters flocked to the site. Some claimed to have captured her spirit on camera, while others reported feeling an oppressive presence when they entered room 33. One particularly chilling account came from a group of paranormal investigators who visited the asylum in the early 2000s. They spent the night in the building, hoping to document any supernatural activity. As they set up their equipment in room 33, the temperature in the room suddenly dropped, and their cameras began to malfunction. Then, without warning, one of the investigators was violently thrown across the room by an unseen force. The others watched in horror as deep scratches appeared on his back, as if made by invisible claws. They fled the asylum in terror, vowing to never return. To this day, no one knows what truly happened to Emily or why her spirit remains trapped within the walls of Hellingly Asylum. But this is certain, the horrors of that place have left a permanent mark on the land, and those who venture too close may find themselves drawn into a nightmare from which there is no escape.